Let me start by asking you a simple question. Have you ever felt like someone didn't see your worth? Maybe it was a friend who only called when they needed something, a colleague who overlooked your contributions, or even a family member who constantly dismissed your efforts. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, wondering why someone just doesn't seem to value you? Maybe it's a friend who only reaches out when they need something, or a coworker who constantly overlooks your contributions. Perhaps it's even a family member whose words or actions make you feel invisible, no matter how much effort you put in. It's easy to jump to conclusions in these situations. We start thinking, is it me? Did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? But before you spiral into self-doubt, it's important to take a step back and ask a deeper question. Why don't they value me? Understanding why someone doesn't value you is the first step toward dealing with the situation in a healthy, empowering way. Too often we assume that when people mistreat or overlook us, it's a reflection of our own worth. But more often than not, their behavior has very little to do with us and a lot to do with them. Their mindset, their past experiences, and their personal struggles. Sometimes people don't value you simply because they're unaware. They're caught up in their own lives, their own problems, and they don't even realize how their actions affect those around them. It's not always malice. It can be ignorance or thoughtlessness. Think about the friend who forgets to reply to your messages or cancels plans at the last minute. It's easy to take that personally, but maybe they're overwhelmed with their own issues. That doesn't excuse their behavior, but it shifts the narrative from they don't care about me to they might be struggling with something I don't see. On the other hand, some people don't value you because you've made yourself too available. This can be a hard pill to swallow, but it's true. When you constantly say yes, when you always put others' needs ahead of your own, people can start to take you for granted. It's not that your kindness isn't appreciated, it's that it becomes expected. They assume you'll always be there, so they stop recognizing the effort you're putting in. It's like background noise. You don't notice it until it's gone. This doesn't mean you should stop being kind or helpful, but it's a reminder that boundaries are essential. When you set limits, you teach people to appreciate your time and energy. There's also another layer to this. Sometimes people don't value you because they don't value themselves. It sounds strange, but it's true. People who are insecure, unhappy, or struggling with their own self-worth often project those feelings onto others. If they feel small, they'll try to make you feel small too. If they don't believe they deserve respect, they'll withhold it from you as well. This is especially common in competitive environments, like at work. A colleague who feels threatened by your success might try to undermine you, not because you've done anything wrong, but because they feel inadequate. And then, of course, there are people who simply don't know how to value others. They've never learned to appreciate or respect the people around them. Maybe they grew up in an environment where love and support were conditional, where vulnerability was seen as weakness. As a result, they struggle to form meaningful connections. They keep people at arm's length, dismissing or devaluing them before they can get too close. It's a defense mechanism, one that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own emotional walls. Understanding why someone doesn't value you doesn't mean you have to accept their behavior or keep them in your life. But it does help you approach the situation with clarity instead of emotion. It helps you see that their actions are a reflection of them, not you. And that's a powerful realization. Because once you understand that, you can stop internalizing their treatment as a measure of your worth. You can set boundaries without guilt, distance yourself without resentment, and move forward without carrying the weight of their opinions. So the next time you find yourself wondering why someone doesn't value you, pause and reflect. Is it because they're unaware of their actions? Have you allowed their behavior by not setting boundaries? Are they projecting their own insecurities onto you? Or are they simply incapable of valuing anyone because they don't even value themselves? The answers might not always be clear, but asking these questions will give you the insight and strength to handle the situation in a way that honors your worth. Because at the end of the day, how others treat you says more about them, but how you respond says everything about you. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to command respect wherever they go, while others are constantly overlooked or taken for granted? It's not always about status, wealth, or appearance. More often than not, it comes down to one simple truth. You teach people how to treat you. The way you set boundaries, communicate your needs, and carry yourself signals to others what you will and will not accept. It's like holding up a mirror. People reflect back what you show them. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel undervalued. Maybe it's a friend who always cancels plans at the last minute, a partner who dismisses your feelings, or a coworker who constantly dumps extra work on you without acknowledgement. It's easy to blame them entirely for their behavior, but here's a tough question. Have you allowed it to happen? Every time you let that friend cancel without saying how it makes you feel, every time you accept that partner's dismissal without standing up for yourself, or every time you quietly take on that extra work without pushing back, you're sending a message. That message is, this is okay. I'll accept this. Now, that doesn't mean you're responsible for someone else's bad behavior. People are responsible for their own actions. But when you don't set boundaries or communicate your needs, you unintentionally give them permission to continue treating you the same way. It's not about being confrontational or aggressive. It's about being clear. When you respect yourself, others will learn to respect you too. Let's break this down with a simple example. Imagine you have a friend who always calls you late at night to vent about their problems, but they never ask how you're doing. At first, you might pick up the phone every time because you want to be supportive. But over time, it starts to drain you. You feel unappreciated and frustrated. If you keep answering the phone without addressing how you feel, your friend will assume you're fine with it. But if you gently say, hey, I'm happy to listen, but I'd appreciate it if we could talk at a different time when I'm not so exhausted, you're setting a boundary. You're teaching them how you want to be treated. Boundaries aren't walls. They're guidelines. They help define where you end and someone else begins. Without them, relationships become unbalanced. You might find yourself constantly giving while others are constantly taking, but when you establish clear limits, you create a dynamic of mutual respect. You show people that your time, energy, and emotions are valuable, and that if they want to be part of your life, they need to honor that. Of course, setting boundaries isn't always easy, especially if you're used to being a people pleaser or if you fear conflict. You might worry that standing up for yourself will upset others or make them pull away. And sometimes it does. But here's the thing. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, they were never really valuing you in the first place. It's better to have honest, respectful relationships than ones where you feel resentful or taken advantage of. Another important part of teaching people how to treat you is consistency. It's not enough to set a boundary once and then let it slide the next time. If you tell someone you won't tolerate a certain behavior, but then you let it happen without addressing it, you're sending mixed signals. Consistency reinforces your standards and helps others understand that you're serious about how you expect to be treated. But it's not just about saying no or pushing back against negative behavior. Teaching people how to treat you also means showing appreciation when they treat you well. Positive reinforcement is powerful. When someone respects your boundaries, acknowledges your efforts, or supports you in a meaningful way, let them know you appreciate it. This encourages more of that behavior and strengthens the relationship. It's also important to remember that teaching people how to treat you starts with how you treat yourself. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, neglecting your own needs, or downplaying your worth, others will pick up on that energy. But when you carry yourself with confidence, prioritize self-care, and speak to yourself with kindness, you set a standard for how you expect others to treat you. Self-respect is the foundation for external respect. So take a moment to reflect on the relationships in your life. Are there places where you feel undervalued or disrespected? If so, ask yourself, have I communicated my needs clearly? Have I set boundaries? Have I been consistent in upholding them? If the answer is no, it's not too late to start. The next time someone crosses a line, pause and think, what am I teaching them right now? Because every interaction is an opportunity to reinforce your worth. At the end of the day, you deserve to be treated with respect, kindness, and consideration, but it starts with you. When you teach people how to treat you, you don't just change your relationships, you change your life. There's a natural instinct in all of us to want to be liked, appreciated, and valued. It's part of being human. We crave connection and validation from others. But there's a fine line between wanting to be valued and chasing after people who don't see our worth. And here's the hard truth. The more you chase people who don't value you, the further they'll run. Real respect, real connection isn't something you can force. It's something you attract when you stand confidently in your own worth. Think about it. Have you ever tried to win over someone's attention or approval only to feel more frustrated and empty afterward? Maybe it was a friend who never seemed as invested in the friendship as you were, or a romantic interest who gave you just enough attention to keep you hanging on, but never enough to make you feel truly seen. In these situations, it's tempting to try harder, to give more, to be more accommodating, to prove that you're worthy of their time and energy. But what usually happens, the more effort you put in, the more distant they become. That's because chasing creates imbalance. When you chase someone's attention, you're placing them on a pedestal and putting yourself beneath them. You're sending a silent message. Your approval is more valuable than my self-respect. And people can sense that energy. It's not attractive, it's desperate. The harder you chase, the more they pull away, not because they're inherently cruel, but because humans naturally move away from things that feel forced. Now imagine flipping that dynamic. Instead of chasing, you focus on becoming the best version of yourself. You pour your energy into things that make you feel fulfilled, confident, and alive. You invest in your passions, your growth, your well-being. Suddenly, you're not looking outward for validation, you're creating it from within. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop chasing and start living authentically, the right people are drawn to you. They're attracted to your confidence, your self-assurance, and your genuine energy. Let's use an example. Imagine two people at a party. One person is constantly trying to get everyone's attention, jumping into conversations, laughing a little too loudly, trying a little too hard to be liked. The other person is relaxed, engaged in meaningful conversations, and genuinely enjoying themselves without worrying about who's watching. Who do you think people gravitate toward? It's the second person. It's not because they're trying to attract attention, but because they're comfortable in their own skin. Confidence is magnetic. This doesn't just apply to social situations. It's true in every area of life, in relationships, friendships, even at work. People are drawn to those who exude self-worth. When you know your value, you don't feel the need to prove it. You don't overextend yourself for people who give you the bare minimum. You recognize when a situation isn't serving you, and you're not afraid to walk away. And that's powerful. But let's be honest, letting go of the need to chase isn't easy. It requires a shift in mindset. We've been conditioned to believe that if something isn't working, we just need to try harder, put in more effort, be more accommodating. But relationships, whether personal or professional, aren't transactions. You can't force someone to see your value if they're not ready to. And you shouldn't have to. The people who are meant to be in your life will recognize your worth without you having to convince them. This doesn't mean you stop caring about people or that you become cold or indifferent. It means you prioritize your self-respect over the need for external validation. You show up fully in relationships, but you don't lose yourself in the process. If someone doesn't meet you halfway, you don't chase after them. You step back and make room for the people who will. It's also important to remember that what you attract is a reflection of who you are. If you're constantly attracting people who don't value you, it might be a sign to look inward. Are you valuing yourself? Are you setting clear boundaries? Are you living in alignment with your true self? When you focus on your own growth and fulfillment, you naturally begin to attract relationships that reflect that same energy. And here's the best part. When you stop chasing, you gain more than just healthy relationships. You gain peace. You're no longer exhausted from trying to prove your worth. You're no longer anxious about whether people will like you or stay in your life. You know that you're enough as you are, and that the right people will see and appreciate that. So the next time you find yourself chasing after someone's attention or approval, pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What am I hoping to gain? And more importantly, what would happen if I stopped chasing and started focusing on myself? The answer might surprise you. Because the secret to being valued isn't in how hard you chase, it's in how confidently you stand still. Don't chase, attract. There's a common misconception that distancing yourself from people is an act of punishment or revenge, a way to hurt those who have wronged you. But in reality, creating distance isn't about making a statement to someone else. It's about making a commitment to yourself. Distance is power. It's a tool for self-preservation, clarity, and growth. When you step back from relationships or situations that drain you, you're not being cold or heartless. You're reclaiming your energy, your peace, and your self-worth. We often feel guilty for pulling away from people, especially if we've been conditioned to believe that loyalty means sticking around no matter what. Maybe it's a longtime friend who's become toxic, a family member whose negativity weighs you down, or a romantic partner who no longer respects your boundaries. We tell ourselves, I can't just walk away. What if they think I don't care? What if they get hurt? But here's the truth. Staying in relationships that no longer serve you doesn't make you loyal, it makes you stuck. And being stuck isn't healthy for you or for them. Creating distance doesn't always mean cutting people off completely. Sometimes it's as simple as stepping back emotionally, reducing the time you spend with certain individuals, or setting firmer boundaries. The goal isn't to hurt anyone, it's to give yourself the space to breathe, reflect, and regain perspective. Distance allows you to see things clearly. When you're too close to a situation, emotions can cloud your judgment. You might find yourself excusing bad behavior, justifying mistreatment, or downplaying how much something affects you. But when you step back, the fog lifts. You start to see things for what they really are, not what you wish they were. Let's say you have a friend who constantly belittles your achievements or brings negativity into every conversation. When you're in the thick of that relationship, it's easy to dismiss their comments as harmless jokes or assume you're overreacting. But when you create some distance, when you stop answering every call, decline a few invitations, and take time for yourself, you begin to realize how much lighter you feel without their constant negativity. That's the power of distance. It gives you the mental and emotional space to evaluate how people impact your life. Distance also empowers you to set boundaries without getting caught up in unnecessary drama. When you're emotionally entangled in a relationship, it's easy to get pulled into arguments, guilt trips, or manipulative behavior. But when you step back, you create a buffer that protects your peace. You're less reactive, more thoughtful, and better equipped to make decisions that align with your values. Distance doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to protect your well-being. It's important to remember that distance isn't just for dealing with toxic people. Sometimes even good relationships need space. We all go through phases where we need time to focus on ourselves. Whether it's to pursue personal goals, heal from past experiences, or simply recharge. Taking that time doesn't mean you're abandoning anyone. It means you're prioritizing your own growth. And the people who truly value you will understand and respect that. In fact, healthy relationships often grow stronger after a little distance. When both parties have the space to reflect and grow individually, they can come back together with a renewed sense of appreciation and understanding. But here's a part that's often overlooked. Distance isn't just about creating space from others, it's about creating space for yourself. When you step back from draining relationships, you make room for the things that truly nourish you. You have more time and energy to invest in your passions, your goals, and the people who uplift you. You rediscover who you are outside of those relationships, and you reconnect with your own needs and desires. That's where true empowerment comes from, not from pushing others away, but from pulling yourself closer. Of course, creating distance can be uncomfortable. It might stir up feelings of guilt, fear, or loneliness. You might worry about what others will think or how they'll react. But here's something to keep in mind. People who genuinely care about you will respect your need for space. They won't guilt trip you, lash out, or make you feel bad for taking care of yourself. And if they do, that's a clear sign that the distance was necessary. Ultimately, creating distance is an act of self-love. It's a way of saying, I deserve peace. I deserve respect. I deserve relationships that nourish, not drain me. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are valuable and you have the right to decide where they go. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by someone's presence in your life, give yourself permission to step back. You're not being mean. You're not being selfish. You're choosing you. And that's the most powerful choice you can make. Life is unpredictable. People will test your patience, challenges will come out of nowhere, and situations will arise that push you to your limits. In these moments, you have two choices: react or respond. At first glance, they might seem like the same thing, but the difference between them is life-changing. Reactions are impulsive, emotional, and often regrettable. Responses, on the other hand, are intentional, thoughtful, and empowering. The ability to shift from reacting to responding is one of the most powerful skills you can develop because it puts you in control, not of the situation, but of yourself. Think about a time when someone said or did something that triggered you. Maybe a coworker took credit for your idea, a family member made a passive-aggressive comment, or a stranger cut you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction might have been anger, frustration, or even retaliation. You lashed out, said something sharp, or let the situation ruin your entire mood. But later, when the emotion settled, you might have thought, I wish I had handled that differently. That's the trap of reacting. You let emotions dictate your actions. And emotions are temporary. Now imagine the same scenario, but this time, instead of reacting, you pause. You take a breath, you assess the situation. Instead of immediately firing back, you choose a response that aligns with who you are and what you want to accomplish. Maybe instead of snapping at the coworker, you calmly assert your contribution in a way that leaves no room for misunderstanding. Maybe instead of arguing with a family member, you acknowledge their comment and set a firm boundary. Maybe instead of honking and yelling at the reckless driver, you shake your head and keep moving, refusing to let their actions steal your peace. In every situation, you get to decide, will I react emotionally or will I respond with intention? This shift doesn't just improve your external relationships, it transforms your internal world. When you're constantly reacting, you're giving your power away. You're allowing other people and external circumstances to dictate your emotions and behavior. But when you respond, you're operating from a place of self-control. You're no longer at the mercy of your emotions. Instead, you're guiding them in a way that serves you. Responding is an act of self-mastery. Of course, making this shift isn't easy. We've been conditioned to react since childhood. We've learned to defend ourselves, to prove a point, to fight back. And while there are moments where standing your ground is necessary, most situations in life don't require an emotional outburst. They require wisdom. The key to breaking the reaction cycle is awareness. The next time you feel an emotional surge, whether it's anger, frustration, or defensiveness, pause. Ask yourself, 1, what am I feeling right now? Identify the emotion. 2, why am I feeling this way? Is this about the situation or is it triggering something deeper? 3, what outcome do I want? Do I want to prove a point or do I want a solution? 4, what action aligns with that outcome? What can I say or do that moves me toward resolution instead of conflict? That small moment of reflection can change everything. It gives you space to act from intention rather than impulse. And with time, this practice becomes second nature. You start to notice that the things that used to trigger you no longer have the same effect. You begin to move through life with more ease, clarity, and confidence. Shifting from reaction to response isn't about suppressing your emotions, it's about mastering them. It's about choosing how and when to express yourself in a way that serves you rather than sabotages you. It's about stepping into your power instead of handing it over to every person or situation that challenges you. At the end of the day, life will always present difficulties. People will still test your patience, and unexpected challenges will still arise. But the difference is, you will be different. You will no longer be controlled by external forces. you will have the ability to pause, process, and choose your response with wisdom and strength. And in that choice, you will find true freedom. We live in a world where it often feels like our worth is constantly being measured, questioned, or compared. Whether it's through social media likes, job performance reviews, relationship dynamics, or even the opinions of strangers, we're bombarded with messages that make us wonder, am I good enough? But here's the truth that cuts through all the noise. Your value isn't up for debate. It's not a negotiation, it's not dependent on other people's approval, and it certainly isn't defined by external validation. Your worth is inherent, unchanging, and absolute, no matter what anyone else says or thinks. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you felt the need to prove yourself to someone? Maybe you bent over backward in a relationship, hoping the other person would finally recognize your value. Or you stayed late at work, over-delivering on projects just to gain a bit of acknowledgement from your boss. Maybe you changed parts of yourself, your appearance, your opinions, your passions, just to fit into a group, to be liked, to feel accepted. But even after all that effort, did you feel more secure in your worth, or did you feel more exhausted, more disconnected from who you truly are? The problem with seeking validation from others is that it puts your self-worth in their hands. You're essentially saying, I'll feel valuable if you approve of me. But here's the reality. People's opinions are fickle. They change based on their mood, their insecurities, their experiences. Things that have nothing to do with you. Tying your worth to something so unstable is like building a house on quicksand. No matter how hard you try to keep it standing, it's bound to sink. The real power comes when you decide that your worth is non-negotiable. It doesn't rise when people praise you, and it doesn't fall when they criticize you. It's steady, unshakable, and rooted in the simple fact that you exist. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because you are already enough. Now, that doesn't mean you stop growing or striving to be better. Self-improvement is important, but it should come from a place of self-love, not self-doubt. There's a big difference between saying, I want to grow because I know I'm capable of more, versus I need to grow because I'm not good enough as I am. When you operate from a foundation of inherent worth, your growth becomes a celebration of who you are, not a desperate attempt to fill a void. But how do you internalize this truth when the world around you constantly tries to tell you otherwise? It starts with self-awareness. Pay attention to the moments when you feel like you're not enough. Who or what is making you feel that way? Is it a comment someone made? A rejection you faced? A comparison you made scrolling through social media? Once you identify the source, remind yourself, this doesn't define me. My worth isn't tied to this moment, this person, or this situation. Next, practice affirming your own value. It might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to relying on external validation, but start small. Every day, take a moment to acknowledge something you value about yourself. Your kindness, your resilience, your creativity, your sense of humor. Over time, this practice rewires your brain to look inward for validation instead of outward. It's also important to set boundaries with people who consistently make you question your worth. If someone in your life belittles you, dismisses your feelings, or makes you feel like you have to earn their respect, it's time to reassess that relationship. You deserve to be surrounded by people who recognize your value without you having to prove it over and over again. And if distancing yourself from those people isn't possible, then it's even more critical to strengthen your internal belief in your worth. Their inability to see your value says more about them than it does about you. One of the most liberating realizations is understanding that not everyone will value you. And that's okay. You're not for everyone, and everyone isn't for you. Trying to be universally liked or accepted is a losing game, because no matter what you do, there will always be someone who doesn't get you, doesn't appreciate you, or simply doesn't vibe with you. That doesn't diminish your worth. It just means you're not in alignment with that person. And that's perfectly fine. Your value isn't based on how many people approve of you. It's based on how you show up authentically in the world. At the end of the day, you are the only person who needs to fully understand and believe in your worth. When you do, you'll find that the opinions of others, whether good or bad, don't hold as much weight